Hello again, coming to you from one of my favorite farms in New Jersey, North Slope Farm, for our third and final FesTomato recipe. I chose this recipe as an homage to my heritage and a celebration of the middle of summer, using as much summer produce as I could get my hands on here. Also my Italian, Sicilian, and Israeli Jewish heritage. Now we're gonna make a tomato and squash stewed chicken on top of an Israeli couscous tabbouleh salad with fresh cherry tomatoes, garden herbs, and a little vinaigrette with a bunch of other delicious spices and scallions. So I wanted to show you my abundance of herbs and ingredients that I have on this beautiful table. So in the base of this salad, we have lots of fresh and interesting, nutritious, very flavorful herbs that I just harvested. First we have the classic parsley. This is what you'd usually find in most tabbouleh salads. We have purslane, which is an unusual green to add to a salad, but I saw some as I was picking the parsley, and I thought, you know what, this would add some nice vitamins and minerals and crunch. This is some basil and some thyme and some beautiful apple mint. Has a little bit of flowers, but I'll just take that off. And some sage. And then we have some tomatoes, of course, and large tomatoes and little cherry tomatoes. Garlic. I saw this out in the greenhouse and I picked it just for fun. A beautiful yellow bell pepper and some yellow tender summer squash and a cucumber. The first thing I did here is boil some water. So our water is done boiling, and I'm going to add the couscous. It's about 1 cup of couscous to 1 1/4 cup of boiling water. So I eyeball it these days. You know, it's good to hone your instincts, and you know, a lot of nonas don't use measuring cups, so it's what I aspire to be. So couscous is basically a dried pasta. It is not a grain, as some people think it is. It's made with a whole grain, but it's a secondary processed food. And like a grain, it really likes to steam. So I'm gonna mix that up and cover it and let it sit for a good maybe 15 minutes. While the couscous is steaming, I'm gonna get my stewed tomato, zucchini, and chicken going with spices, so that as I'm done chopping all of our herbs and everything that goes inside the tabbouleh, that will be ready to go. I'm gonna get my big soft tomatoes. These are great to use because you can tell they have a lot of water inside. You can tell by just giving them a little nudge that they're full of water. So I'm gonna cut this into a large dice and then add it right to the pot. Okay, so that's all of the tomatoes. I'm gonna do a little bit of scallions because there's onions around this farm somewhere. There's so many structures and buildings, and I don't know where the onions are, so we're gonna use scallions because they're just baby onions and they provide the same delicious allium flavor and will get a little caramelized. So I'm gonna put the zucchinis next. So I'm gonna add some oil in here. Just a little bit, maybe, 3 or 4 tablespoons, and a nice amount of salt. And then I'm gonna put this bad boy on and cover it up and let it go. So just like I made the tomato sauce in our first video, after a few minutes, the tomatoes are gonna start to melt and become like a base liquid for this stew. But I am gonna add a little bit of chicken broth, just to add a little flavor. Broth, another extremely nutritious way to cook your stew. Just a little bit, because I am gonna cook chicken in there, and The broth will let it slow cook, and also the acidity of the tomatoes and the broth together will make a nice cooking liquid. Okay, so while that is on, I'm going to chop my millions of bountiful, beautiful herbs here. So the cherry tomatoes I'm gonna cut in half and put in this beautiful dish that I have here. And these are naturally sweet, so if you wanted a more classic red tomato, you could do that. I just figure, you know, why not put the most bright and beautiful and sweet tomato in this tabbouleh salad. So I know we all associate tomatoes with Italian cooking, but we all know that the origins are from Central America and was brought over to Europe during perhaps the time of Christopher Columbus and sort of took off once people discovered how easy it is to grow, how versatile it is. It could be sweet or savory. Still in question today if it's a fruit or a vegetable. But it's a fruit. It has really taken over the entire globe. I think tomatoes are somewhere in most cuisines. Italian cooking wouldn't be where it is today without these incredible little jewels. You can see the tomatoes and the squash are starting to cook down. A lot of the liquids are coming out, and this is on a medium-high heat. The salt also helps this cooking process. So all the tomatoes are cut. Now I'm gonna do a nice chop of this beautiful parsley. Parsley is also great for your digestion. My aunt, my Tia Rose, taught me that when I was little. I had an upset stomach, and she would harvest some parsley from underneath the lemon tree. And if I ate too much kukutsa and random other combinations that I probably shouldn't have mixed together as a kid, the parsley would help my stomach digest. And I'm gonna add that right to the tomatoes here. I'm gonna put this parsley aside and work on this beautiful purslane. Parsley and purslane, best friends. Get rid of some of these woodier stems here. The beautiful thing about working outside, this also has a ton of vitamin C in it. Consult your neighborhood nonna and earthy, crunchy friends to confirm that information. Okay, I think I'm ready to add the chicken to this. Woo! Okay, yeah, ooh, yeah. So I'm gonna add the chicken in. So you could get a boneless, skinless, but I think you get more flavor with the skin and the bone. So we're adding it all in. So this is cooking really nicely. You know, it looks like a nice tomato stew now. I'm gonna give that a little mix. I'm also gonna add a little bit of cumin and paprika. Hello, that's a fusion experience. That's a Middle Eastern twist on this. All right, so I'm gonna cover this for maybe 15 to 20 minutes until the chicken is done. And then hopefully everything else will be chopped and we can put them together, and that's it. That's good. Check out all this greenery we have here. And it may all look the same, but there's a lot of different flavors happening in this one big, beautiful dish. So all of our herbs are done. Now I'm gonna chop up some pepper, cucumber, and scallions, and then that's all of our raw ingredients to toss into the tabbouleh salad, which is probably done fluffing up by now. Humble origins. All right, that's the cucumber. And then the scallions. All right, so that's all of our raw ingredients, and now I'm gonna add it into this huge bowl and toss it with our finished couscous, which, hey, looks absolutely perfect. And I added a nice amount of salt to this so that it's already seasoned. So I'm gonna add that into this bowl. You could use bulgur wheat, you could use quinoa, you could use any kind of grain. You can use a nice wild rice. It's really whatever you have. And this is a ton of roughage. Looking good. Okay, so that's good to go. Let's see how this is doing. The sage is cooking nicely. I do need to add one very important ingredient, the garlic. So that's almost done. I like to add the garlic somewhat in the middle or the end of the cooking process because I feel like you can taste it, and some of its nutritional and medicinal properties may be more active when the garlic is raw, but I think you can access that at any time in the garlic's culinary life. Wow, that matches me, right? That's pretty. So adding the garlic in, stir that up. Now I'm going to dress our tabbouleh herb salad. Very simple. I'm gonna add some smoked paprika, and this will complement the paprika that's already inside of the chicken stew, and some cumin, ground cumin. You could also use a mortar and a pestle and grind up some fresh cumin seed. You can't beat that, but this is what I have today. A little bit of olive oil and some red wine vinegar. And red wine vinegar, it complements these herbs really nicely. It doesn't overpower the mint or the basil or the parsley or the thyme. And I'm going to add a little more salt. Okay. And then I'm going to put it on this beautiful dish that I have here, this beautiful serving platter. And I'm going to make a little bit of a nest in the middle, and that's where we're going to put the chicken and the stew. Let's make sure this is done. Okay. All right, this is done. So I'm gonna turn that off and bring this over. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to very gracefully add our stewed chicken right to the center of this. 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to put some zucchinis on top. This is abundanza, as they say, abundance. And when you add the liquids like this, it absorbs into the couscous. This is similar to a Sicilian seafood couscous dish where you put all kinds of seafood that's been cooking in a tomato broth on top of a North African spiced couscous dish. So somewhat similar in that vein. Okay, so the chicken is kind of hiding there, but whoever digs in will get a nice chicken surprise. Okay, so that's that. And now for the final garnish. I'm gonna add a little bit of yogurt on top for a cooling, creamy effect. I'm gonna add a little garnish, a little parsley, a little basil, a little thyme. And there we have it. This is the Israeli-Italian garden herb tomato couscous tabbouleh salad with zucchini and tomatoes stewed with chicken and unique spices. And I hope that you can make something like this to celebrate the beautiful Jersey tomato. We are going to enjoy the heck out of this right now because it's smoking hot and I'm sure we're all hungry. So thank you again. My name is Gabby and I love food and farms and tomatoes and New Jersey.